Hi guys. So for my project about the Harlem Renaissance, I decided to talk about the development of art in the Harlem Renaissance. As some of you guys might already know, I'm a huge fan of art, whether it's making art or learning about art. So I decided to make my own collage for this project, and I will also discuss some development in the art history of the Harlem Renaissance. I think that there's three main aspects to the Harlem Renaissance, which was honestly an era of very unique artworks. I think that this was the period in time where artists really realized that they could show their cultures and their thoughts and ideas through artwork, whether it was music, poetry, or art. So in my collage, I will show aspects of music and poetry and my interpretation of how my art fits into the Harlem Renaissance era. Shows a photo of Augusta Savage, who was a famous sculptor during the Harlem Renaissance era. And if you look to her left, you see some famous artworks depicting mostly people playing music or some aspect associated with music. And so I think that's the part of my collage that shows the influence of music because honestly, many of the famous pieces from that time showed people in the blues and the jazz era. And if we look to her right, we see some plants and nature. So I made the connection to nature through poetry in a poem by Langston Hughes. So let America be America again, because he talks about, wanting to take back that free land where equality is really meant for everyone. And, although the themes of nature aren't exactly prevalent, I think it fit in to make a proper contrast for this collage. And then I added Harlem Renaissance underneath, sort of to show more aspects of, the form of art, which is collages. And I think my idea to make a collage came from Romare Bearden's works. He mainly made collages, and I think I love those so much that I wanted to try to make my own. Just as a side note, so I think that my collage shows the more creative and colorful aspect of the art created in the Harlem Renaissance. There were some classical pieces. I think mine is a lot more colorful and abstract. Um, and while I do think that it shows themes of like art and the poetry and the music a little bit, it's also a depiction of my art style because I wanted to incorporate my creativity into this project as well. As I mentioned before, there's many different styles that were used throughout the Harlem Renaissance art era. Um, And so, the art included sculptures, collages, drawings, paintings, murals, photography, and many other things that I probably just can't think of right now. Honestly, you will see a bit of development of art style over time, but what you will really see the difference in is how different art styles are. So, like, sculptures will be a lot more classical than collages, for example, and I will discuss those in the following slides. Collage. I will not bore you guys with too many details about the history of art. However, I think it's still important to discuss some major developments in the art period of the Harlem Renaissance. So, the sculpture is called Gammon. It's by Augusta Savage, the woman who was shown in my collage. The work was created in 1929 and depicts a young African American boy. Then the collage is called Three Folk Musicians. So, again, there's a theme of music. It's by Romare Bearden and it's made in 1967 that shows that the influence of the Harlem Renaissance art period really lasted for many decades after the Harlem Renaissance actually ended. Then the painting is called The Ascent of Ethiopia by Louis Maylou Jones. I really don't know how to pronounce that. But if you zoom into the top right corner of this piece, you will see text that says music, drama, and art. I think that really shows the prevalence of these art forms in the Harlem Renaissance era. And also in this piece, you can see sort of the influence of Africa and some of the cultural aspects that were brought over to the US. Next, we have a mural. So murals were a lot less common, but at the same time, you can still see them around. This one is called The Spirit of Harlem. It's located at the corner of 125th Street and Frederick Douglass Boulevard. So I think this is a location we discussed in one of the first poems where we talked about different neighborhoods in Harlem. This was created in 2005, actually, and it's really colorful. Once again, you can see people dancing and making music. And then the last piece I'm going to discuss is a photo. It's from the 1920s. Obviously, it's a realistic depiction of life in the 20s, and it shows people playing music. So I think this whole theme of music, blues, jazz was very prevalent all throughout all forms of art. That's how art changed over time. Based on the 5 pieces that I showed here, you can see that the ones created in 1929 and 1932, which was the sculpture and the painting, while the painting was still colorful and a bit creative, I think the works created later on were um, a lot more different and abstract, I think you could say. So, like the collage, for example, and the mural, they definitely show some abstract. The mural is actually a glass mosaic, so I think that's really cool on its own. So I think that the art actually became more creative after the Harlem Renaissance era, through which the influence of the Harlem Renaissance era remained. If we were to compare it to like other styles, for example, if you were to take the classical Renaissance art period, Renaissance art forms are full of dark colors, I think. They're a lot more realistic as opposed to these, which are really creative, abstract, and colorful. So, yeah. I'm not gonna go into too much detail about art history anymore. If you survived this long, thank you. That was really my main interpretation of art in the Harlem Renaissance period and how my collage fits into it. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.